Thank you. Karibuni, karibuni. Tuna furaha kuwaona leo. My name is Jean Clark. I'm the Public Diplomacy Counselor, and we're so thrilled to see you all here today. Thank you for coming. We're delighted to welcome our Deputy Chief of Mission here today. Prior to his arrival in Tanzania, he served as the Acting Director for Policy Planning and Resources in the Office of the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, and as Director for Strategic Communications at the National Security Council. Other diplomatic assignments include overseas Islamabad, Pakistan, Beijing, Quito, Ecuador, and Guangzhou, China. We were just talking, and we have many attorneys amongst us, and one of which is Rob Rains. We're really grateful to have him engage with us today and lead the discussion. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Rains.
Wow, habari za leo. How is everybody today? It's okay? I'm looking out at this audience, my first time in this space, and it's a beautiful space. And so I just want to thank, first of all, NAFASI Art Space for giving us this space to have the conversation today. But the space is just empty until it's filled with beautiful people like you. So thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see everybody in the audience. Thank you for your participation. And also thank you for what you do in your communities on this important issue that we're here to talk about today. I also just I need to help and thank Plan International for their help in putting all the details together for this event. Our embassy team that's still working on the lights and the sound and everything to make this happen. All of the friends of the media that are here. And of course, our distinguished guests who are here on the table who we're here to hear from today. This event, as you all know, comes in the middle of 16 days against gender-based violence, or 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And that day, the 16 days starts in November, on November 27th or 25th, with the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it ends on December 10th, which is the Human Rights Day. And I think it's important to realize and think about those two important dates because they highlight what we already know about this issue. One is that we can only have gender equality if we address gender-based violence. That's one thing. And two, that gender-based violence is a human rights issue. It's a human rights issue that affects people all around the world. And it's something that prevents women and girls, but I would also argue communities, societies, and nations from becoming and realizing their true potential. Now, when I come and I talk about that, I'm here in Tanzania and I'm an American talking about this. One of the reasons I'm highlighting it is because this is an issue for all countries. All levels of society see gender-based violence, and that includes in the United States. And so that's why we do events like today. The US Embassy comes and we partner with wonderful Tanzanians who are working very, very hard on this issue so that we can learn, so that we can share lessons, and so that we can partner together on this challenge that we all share. And I explain all of this basically to explain why I'm so honored to be able to share the stage today with our guests today. We have, I'll go first with Afande Judith. Thank you so much. And Judith comes all the way from Katavi region and literally came all the way from Katavi region for this event today. Thank you so much for coming. She's an assistant police inspector from Katavi who's got more than 8 years experience with the police, but she also oversees the gender desk officer position. So we're grateful to have you here and have your insights on that thing as well. So thank you. Next to her, we have Christine Kamili Ruhinda, who is the executive director for the Tanzania Network of Legal Aid Providers. So she's one of the lawyers, so watch out, which is also better known as TANLAP. And she's got some really unique perspectives on how we're, the legal framework, if you will, for addressing this issue as well. She's also, and I have to brag because I'm part of the U.S. Embassy, she's also a Fulbright Humphreys Scholar. Went to the United States, and we were, benefited in the United States from her expertise, and appreciate your partnership as an alumni. We also have, yes. We also have Precious Vincent as well, who is comes to us all the way from Twara, but now she's a student originally from Twara. Now she's a student here in Dar es Salaam, and also a member of Planned International, a future diplomat like us as well, and here to share her perspective as a student and a young person on this issue. So thank you very much. And then we also have Michael Mwanzalima, who is a social welfare officer in Kinondoni, but he's also the founder and CEO of Africa Foundation for Inclusive Communities, AFIC, Tanzania. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise today. Michael is also an alumni of a U.S. exchange program, and he's a Mandela Washington Fellow as well. So very proud to see members of our exchange programs playing such important roles on such important issues here in Tanzania. So please, if I could have a round of applause for all of our expert participants today. Now what we're going to do, this next part, is I'm going to jump on the stage, and I'm going to ask just a few questions to get started, to get some of the perspectives and get the conversation started, if you will. And then after that, we'll open it up for the audience participation as well. So be thinking as we come along of some of your questions and things like this that we can do. These conversations are best if they are a conversation. And I would say this size of a room is perfect for having a good conversation. We love to hear your perspectives as well as we come along. So without that, I'm going to do it. Okay, whoa, that's very loud. Okay, so I'm just sitting out here a little bit so I can see the group as I ask some of these questions. And maybe first I'll go with you, Christine. TANLAP has been very active. We were just talking about some of the work that you're doing and kind of developing a comprehensive gender-based violence law and legal framework in Tanzania. I just wanted to maybe get some of your comments on the currents, on how you see the current framework from a legal perspective about gender-based violence issue.
Thank you so much. So TANLAP have been working in collaborative with other non-government organizations to make sure that there is a comprehensive anti-GBV law which will protect and help in ending gender-based violence in Tanzania. So the process started many years ago, but past 3 years we saw the process picking up. We had a project which was supported by USAID. We implemented it together with WIDAF, Taula, Kuyeko, and we TANLAP leading the process. So first you have to understand that there are so many laws in Tanzania which are trying to address the issue of GBV in Tanzania, including the Penal Code, the Child Act, the Marriage Act, the Cybercrime, among others. but those laws, the Education Act, but those laws are not sufficient, and we need harmonization of laws and to have a comprehensive one GBV law which would address issues of GBV in Tanzania. So you find those laws having gaps, and because of having so many laws addressing GBV in Tanzania, you get attorney or someone can just get a loophole because of the existence of so many laws, which in one way is providing and in another way is taking the right away. For example, you can see the case of the Marriage Act, Section 17 and 15 on the age of marriage and the law of the child. They are opposing each other. So, like, there is a need for harmonization. But also the penal code, there are some cases which are not comprehensively addressing GBV issues. So we needed a law which would provide for rights, being it criminal. You know, so many cases are criminal, but there is a way that, for example, the SADC model law, which we have been referencing and referencing to get that the country enacts a GBV law, provides for on how member states can deal with GBV as part of criminal, civil, and the administrative. So, and we have been seeing those challenges when receiving cases. You find like you need someone to be arrested, but also a victim to be compensated. So how do we address that? So we need a comprehensive law which provides for all incidences. You can't use the penal code to get the administrative justice or civil justice in the cases of GBV. So those are areas that we wanted to be addressed, but also there are high cases now of GBV online, in political processes, and in economics. So as the context changes in the country, also we need to get laws amended and enactment of a comprehensive law to address all those issues arising out of socio-economy and political. Yeah, in all areas we need GBV to be comprehensive, protected. That's how we end GBV.
Wow. I find your answer very inspirational, actually, Christine, because this is a case where you and others in your team who are Tanzanian citizens, not necessarily part of the Tanzanian government, identified a gap because of your expertise, identified gaps. You raised your voice, you were able to coordinate and then create a partnership with the government to address those gaps. And I say it as a partnership because you look for ways to build bridges and to identify the gap and move it forward. So now we're seeing real change because of what you as a citizen brought, not waiting for the government, but you as a citizen brought and the government received. And I think that's wonderful, both from the citizen activism side, but also from the government being receptive and responsive to you and your expertise. So very inspirational. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, we have a very positive political will from the government, because we have been working together with the Ministry of Constitution and Legal Affairs to get this law enacted, and we have had several consultative sessions where they helped us organize other ministries. We were even honored to have a lawyer from the State House attending our sessions, members from the judicial officers, members of parliament, in the process, and we have shared the situation. We have our reports, which we have shared with them. We have the model law that we have shared with the Minister for Constitution and Legal Affairs, who also asked its management to present it to her. And so we saw also on the social media, on their websites, that they had a meeting where the directors responsible for legal affairs presented the proposed model law to end GBV in Tanzania, which we developed. So that's where we are, and that was just last month.
Wow. Congratulations on making some real progress on this.
Thank you so much.
Let me turn next to Michael. Michael, when you wear many different hats and have a lot of different expertise, you have different roles kind of to address this. Maybe talk to us a little bit about your role as a social officer, social welfare officer. What role does a social welfare officer play in addressing gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned, my name is Michael Mwanzali Mamihai. I'm the Senior Social Welfare from Kinondoni Municipal Council. Social workers have a big role in the gender-based violence. First of all, as a social worker, as people do report to him, and sometimes to find shelter for those who have been abused, but also to advocate for the lives and for women and children who have been abused. So as a social worker, the first thing is to conduct any interventions to the case that has been reported to you, and then you do an investigations, which we call is a social investigation inquiries that help you to know all the magnitude of the problems, but also finding a shelter for those people who have been accused, been in that contact with the violence. Again, is to create awareness to community members, as we find that parents and guardians of children, maybe sometimes they do diverge from the law, and sometimes they don't let those who have been in that problems, they want to resolve those problems at home. So we encourage to report the cases to different places, like to the ward executive officers, and sometimes the meter executive officers, social welfare officers, even to the police stations. So our big role is sometimes to conduct counseling sessions to those people who have been in that challenge, and also to children's. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael. Now let me ask you, Judith. Thank you again for coming so far. But as the head of the police gender desk in Katavi, you must have dealt with lots of different issues. The button's kind of hidden a little bit. Okay, good, you found it. Could you share with us, as the head of the gender desk, what were kind of the more common issues that you had to deal with?
Okay, thank you. As I was introduced before, my name is Judith. I am assistant of police officer, and I'm from Katavi region. I'm in charge of police gender desk there. We are receiving many customers with many cases, but mostly they are experiencing separation of families. There are victims of rape. There are victims of defilement. There are people who are having body assault, mostly just because of um, relationship quarrels, and we are there to help them to get legal assistance so as to get satisfaction. So we are getting many customers who are experiencing gender-based violence. And as Police Gender Desk, we are tirelessly educating our societies on how to combat and eradicate all kind of gender-based violences, since it begins in family levels and in our relatives, in our families. So all criminal cases concerning gender-based violence, we are dealing with them and make sure our customers are getting satisfaction as they predetermined and experienced before as expected.
Thank you very much. Because obviously, we're talking about the overall legal framework and then making sure that it applies and that the individual victims have representation and have access to police services is so critical. And as we've all talked, these laws and these situations are very complicated. And so having a desk that's focused on those issues, able to handle those issues, is so important. And so thank you for your leadership in making that work.
Thank you.
So now let me turn to Precious, actually. Maybe give us a little bit of the youth perspective on this, but maybe starting with, maybe tell us what inspired you to get involved with Plan International and on these issues as well, and maybe what is kind of your perspective on gender-based violence issues as well.
Okay. So growing up, you get to hear stories of gender-based violence happening to other girls, but you never picture it happening to you. So during my secondary school, I experienced sexual harassment from my history teacher, and that literally changed my life because it was the toughest period of my life, and I literally hated school. So I'm glad and happy that I had supportive parents, but the school wasn't very supportive. And when I spoke with my parents and when they went and discussed it with the headmistress, together with all the evidences of the text from the teacher, it still wasn't helpful. And it turned out as a pain for me because school environment changed. Like teachers started talking about me. They didn't believe me. So it was a tough period. So a year later, I got to hear about Plan International, and that was my skipping stone because it helped me so much regain my confidence. Yes, and it actually inspired me to, I'm now wanting to help more girls out there that are experiencing gender-based violence.
Wow, that's very inspirational. Because I think back, the hardest times in my life have never been as hard as what you've gone through. But the strength that you had to continue on and to become who you are now already, despite that challenge, I think is really tremendous. So I feel inspired by hearing your story. And I'm grateful to hear your passion on this issue as well. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe back to Christine now. We've talked about the legal framework. Beyond that, how does TUNLUP help address gender-based violence?
Thank you. So, TUNLUP being an umbrella organization for organizations who are providing legal aid service, we have been raising awareness in the community so that they understand this is GBV and these are the effects of GBV. And once you're a victim of GBV, where to go to get help. So we have been linking them with the police. We have paralegals whom we have trained them. We have legal aid providers who are representing them to court of law to make sure that they get justice. So we coordinate more than 70 organizations who are based across Tanzania, providing legal awareness and helping them to get their rights once they are victims of GBV. But also we have established family legal support network with 13 advocates who are ready to stand and defend a victim of GBV, because most of the cases that we have been receiving are from the close relatives, from members of the family. So that's why we thought that there is a need of having independent team of advocates who will advocate for family rights and defend those who are victims of GBV within the family. So we are working together with the judicial, and we are a member of the Temeke judicial, which is dealing with matters of family issues, and we have our lawyers engaging there, and we are part of the bench where we share the statistics and the challenges and give our opinion on what could be done. And we are really working together with that judicial, and is doing a great job, because whenever we have any challenges, we have someone to reach out, and we see victim who have family issues being assisted. But we are also a member of a criminal justice forum, which is under the Kinondoni, and we also share the cases we receive from the community, because we receive cases from also within Kinondoni, and we have legal aid providers who are within Kinondoni, and get them deal with those cases timely. But also we engage, as I have discussed about our advocates on anti-GBV law. So we engage with the Ministry of Constitution and other relevant ministries to make sure that we discuss together, we deliberate together, and strategize together on how we can end GBV in Tanzania. Even tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we are invited with the Minister of Community Development, Gender and Special Groups. They will be consulting on developing a new national plan of to end GBV in Tanzania. So we are also giving our opinion. We have been part of the first one, and we are part of the committees which are addressing VAC at regional level, district level, through our members, because TANLAB we work with and through our members, so members who are across the country. Make sure that our voices are heard, and we inform whatever strategy or policy we are in place in the country. Also we have members who are providing shelter, like Kuyeko. So they have been receiving victims of gender-based violence, and they provide with them with shelter. And of course, we need more shelters to make sure that the victims are not going back to where the violence, the harassment, the assault have been happening. So we have members who are providing also shelters. We have hotlines, members like Wildaf, Wilak, Taula. They are receiving cases online, and also one-on-one to make sure that they provide justice to the victims of GBV. So those are some of the work we are doing. And through paralegals who are based in every ward of Tanzania, we have been able to legally empower the community to understand their rights, including understanding GBV. And so we have facilitated trainings to them to make sure that they are able also to provide that legal redress to members of the community.
Wow, it's very, very busy, but very, very inspirational. Thank you. Doing real grassroots work and making a real difference. Maybe back to Michael now. We talked a little bit about your work as a social worker, but maybe tell us a little bit about more from your perspective as a leader on inclusivity and inclusive communities. How do you see the tie between fostering inclusive communities and addressing gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. I have been, I am the co-founder of a non-governmental organization working for people with disabilities. And we work in inclusive communities where everyone is treated equally, regardless of the disability he or she has. So is the Thank you. So regarding to the gender-based violence, I think I could say people with disabilities are the most vulnerable when it comes to gender-based violence, because you see even the structures, how they can report the case is very difficult for them. Even if you go to, you look to the structures of the buildings, how you access a social welfare, how you access an attorneys, how you access a police officer, how you access, it's so difficult. So reporting gender-based violence to people with disabilities is definitely very difficult to them. But for now, our country is doing great because now there are a lot of initiatives and efforts that going to improve accessibilities and how people with disabilities are being included in each and everything. So saying that people with disabilities now in the inclusive community that we think we need to create in Tanzania is now having a way out. We see the light where we can start, but still we have a long way for coming to talking to people with disabilities, being engaged in this. But my perspectives now to how we can resolve all this, the gender-based violence, is about the harmonizing. We need to harmonize all the agencies that are tackling gender-based violence, because we are operating in differently. Like the police officer are having their own ways of treating a gender-based violence victims, but also if you go to social workers, they have their own principles and the way how they, there is a gap, there is no connections with all the agencies which are dealing with gender-based violence. Maybe we need a lot of education to be, the citizens to be sensitized about how we can report the cases, but also the prosecutors to understand the way, as a social worker, you can struggle to start with the victims. But if you reach at the point, as she has been saying, that we have no common act that is specifically for gender-based violence, you see your case is thrown out. So that's the very difficult situation. So we need to harmonize all the agencies that are dealing with gender-based violence. Tanzania.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good point. We've talked about the partnership, but that partnership requires harmonization between the different organizations and the government and things like that. Let me go to Judith now. When I think about the police gender desk, I think of an effort to make a systemic change that can help the system long term. What are some of the other kind of systemic changes or areas that we need to work on, whether the government or the private sector or the NGOs, to work on? What are some of the core investments we need to make in strengthening the system to protect gender-based violence, the victims of gender-based violence?
Thank you, Mr. Facilitator. To make sure that this kind of gender-based violence and strengthening the ways of elaborating them or eliminating them completely, firstly, as others said, we must collaborate, non-government institutions, and even local government and government as a whole, so as to ensure we do cooperate in elaborating all kinds of gender-based violence, also by providing enough education to our community, since many societies are lacking the education concerning how to be conscious on gender-based violence issues. And there are some kind of people who are solving criminal cases concerning gender-based violence in home levels. They are just finding home resolutions, friendly resolutions. That is not good. Criminal cases, we are advising the whole community to report all criminal cases in police stations, since police officers are the one who are responsible for criminal cases. And also to make sure that these institutions are being enacted even in interior places. For example, in my region, Katavi, you may find we have only one project, that VUMA project, which is collaborating with Police Gender Desk. It's only one, and this one is just concerning girls' health and rights, projected and funded by Canada government, I think, yeah. So it's only one. You can see many of these non-governmental institutions are just staying in big cities, maybe, and feeling like in interior places there are people who are indigenous too much, or maybe it's just because of geographical distance, maybe. But we are welcoming them as VUMA collaborates to eliminate these gender violence against children and gender-based violence as well. Also, we can enact safe houses, so that these safe houses to put all victims concerning with violence, not to discharge businesses and such kind of stuff, threats from their families, fear of immunity, being injured also, it can help. But as Ms. Lawyer said, there is contradiction of laws. If our government will help us in eliminating this contradiction of laws, it will help for us to get many convictions in our cases, reported cases, since we have many numbers of reported cases, but we get poor result at the end, since there are loophole of our criminals to chip in. And also there must be an action of friendly families to put children who are passing through violences and getting some needs there. But it seems there is a lack of education in our community of how to preserve, how to practice this family friends, whatever we call in, these are called safe families for keeping children who are passing through different kind of abuses in the street. Also, we can tirelessly educate our society through medias, through village meetings, and making sure everybody is being conscientized on how these kind of violences are not acceptable in our country and in our society as a whole. So it needs consultative engagement. Everybody to make sure that is engaging totally in fighting and combating against all these kind of violences, especially religious leaders, political leaders, local government leaders, and also non-governmental and governmental as a whole, so that if we communicate and cooperate, working as a team, aiming at eliminating these kind of violences in our families, we are expecting and we are sure that Tanzania without gender-based violence is indeed possible to live peacefully, to live in safety and security, everybody producing economically, socially, interacting with each other without violating anybody. We are expecting to be in a good position of not using our children or our girls as a source of income in our families, make sure our children are reaching their goals as they intend, but also to make sure that there is no forced marriage, there is no early pregnancy, and ensuring to provide even education to these businessmen. Most of them are owning uh, houses for guests, lodges, hotels, but they are all, few of them are welcoming even children under age of 18 as a customer in their businesses. So that is quite total combination of violence against children. We wish everybody in our society to make sure is participating in fighting, in combating, in eradicating all kind of violences against children and gender-based violence as a whole, so that we can be in one good, peaceful country. So collaboration and the action of those I mentioned can help to strengthen our government and be in a good position.
Wow. So it sounds like there's a lot to do, but it sounds like the way we go about it is that combination. Everybody has a piece to play.
Yeah,
Whether
for
it's on
sure.
education or, in businesses or in the government to work together to make this happen.
Yeah,
So,
it needs consultative engagement.
yeah, consultative process. I like that. I like that term. Precious, back to you. Let's talk a little bit about the social side to this. We've talked about some of the legal framework. What's your perspective on some of the maybe social or cultural kind of taboos or norms that perpetuate violence against girls and women? And what do we need to do about it? What's your suggestion on how we address that?
Okay. There are a number of multifaceted approaches that can be taken. One, including provision of education and awareness, not only to youth, but to parents and to all the activists against gender-based violence, because first, youths need to know their right. Most of the youths in Tanzania don't know their rights. They only know that I have to eat, I have to study, but other rights they are not familiar with. Secondly, parents should be educated too, because in 2020, during my Girls Takeover program at Plan International, we traveled to Kibiti, where I experienced a parent receiving dowry for her daughter, or for her daughter to get married to a boda, which is very bad because it influences child marriages, early pregnancies to young females. And lastly, to all the activists against gender-based violence, they should also be educated, because sometimes victims don't show up because all activists don't know how to approach them in a right way. And most of the activists are not confidential enough to keep secrets that are being told by victims. Secondly, I think the government plus institutions that are trying to fight gender-based violence should engage religious leaders because a large number of population, besides from schools, markets, are located in mosques and churches. So it's much more easier to like get a huge population through churches, through mosques. So I should urge all activists and the government to engage religious leaders in fighting gender-based violence. And lastly, enhancing economic opportunities. Most of our societies are low-income societies. So with the intergenerational ideologies that are so crazy and have driven young females into early pregnancies and child marriages, they should, I think the government should find a proper way on how to help the societies raise a number of income so that it should drive parents off from depending on dowry so as to survive. Yes.
Oh, excellent, and thank you for all those insights. It's not a one size fits all, as we say. It's going to take lots of different approaches and lots of different coordination, a consultative process, as you said. Excellent. I'm sorry. Apologies to everybody here. Thank you all for your insights, but I've been taking all the time with my own questions, but now is the time for you to ask your own questions. What questions do you have for our group here? Please, in the front. Do we have a microphone? Or I'll tell you what, I'll share you mine. Oh, you go. Okay.
Thank you. So just a quick question before I proceed. Am I just supposed to say all of my questions or say one question and wait for the response back?
I'll tell you what, why don't we, in interest of everybody, why don't you ask your best question? But as we go around too, when you ask a question, please introduce yourself briefly to the panel. And we'll go with one, and then that'll give everybody else a chance, and then we'll come back if there's no other questions as well. How about that?
Okay. So my name is Karen. I'm a graduate of international relations. And somehow I would say I'm a feminist, but I'm not per se a feminist, but I'm very, very concerned when it comes to issues about gender, so especially for women empowerment. So my first question would be to Christine. You spoke about the gender laws, and with the gender laws, do they only just address the female or do they also address the male? Because I do know, according to statistics, although I don't have like the data exactly, but I'm pretty sure the number of people who are affected by GBV are female. So did you ever, or do you ever work on cases that are related to male? And also to Christine, you spoke about the shelters that your organization offers to people who are you spoke about the shelter. You spoke about the shelter that your organization offers to victims of GBV. So my question is, also somehow Precious spoke about, when people are in those shelters, do you also provide other financial assistance apart from the mental recovery and support? Because as just like how Precious spoke, somehow when people are also provided with this financial assistance, they kind of like know how to sustain themselves. And I do know from my observation, lots of people in the village are the ones who like once they tend to remain in the environment where they are highly abused because they are more of like dependent, or it's also about love. But do you also offer the financial services? And my last question to you, Christine. You spoke about the law amendment, and do you think because the population of Tanzania, according to the UN data, future prospects, the population is going to increase very, very high. So my question is, with the delays of the amendment, the challenges that you're facing, in between there, are there any things that I know they mentioned some sustainable solutions, education, but the population and all of these changes and efforts, they're really, really going to take a while lots and lots of people get to join the community. So those are my questions for you, Christine. Moving to Judith.